Hi, Michael Force here again. Welcome to base lesson number 3. Well, in this lesson, I'm going to talk about crafting your brand and design really that helps captivates and sells seamlessly. The better your branding, the better your look and feel of your website, your blog, your own personal brand, the higher your conversions, the more your trust is created with your users and fans or anybody who's finding you and coming across your content or value that you're providing online. So I'm going to show you exactly how to do that, how I've done it successfully, and how you can leverage my experience and expertise over the last 20 years in sales and marketing for your own benefit here. Now, crafting and branding and design is very important to me. As you can tell, just even with Digital Altitude, I really kind of comb over every detail. There is a fine line between perfectionism and actually getting out of the gates and getting things done and then tweaking over time. That's incredibly important. So I'll definitely walk you through some of those pitfalls because I've been through them. And let's get into crafting a brand and proper design to make sure that you're out of the gates and you're getting really the best look and feel for and it's all relative too, so keep that in mind that it's not so much about obsessing over colors. There are certain colors that convert, there are certain words that convert higher and different things, and I'll break all those down for you so you have a clear understanding of what to do and what not to do. So let's jump into lesson 3 and I'll see you on the inside. Hello, Michael Force here. Welcome to lesson number 3 of the base digital business mastery course here. This is all about crafting a brand and design that captivates and sells seamlessly. Let's dig in here. Now, what I've seen over the years is the uniqueness to a brand is usually what people remember. So what colors, what's the vision, what's the product, there's usually a story behind it. All of these kind of things are typically what makes up a brand. Clarity has a critical role on how we make decisions and relate with the people and brands around us. Now, you won't be able to learn everything all in a day, but as you begin to interact with a clear version, you'll be able to develop emotional understanding of who and what a brand is. In life, we call this personality. In business, we call it branding. Now, congratulations, you have made it to lesson number 3, and your formal launch of your brand is just around the corner here. In lesson number 3, we'll discuss leadership, personal development, goals, visions, weaknesses, and fears. You learned about how you are and what you are as an entrepreneur, and how you should be thinking on this uncharted journey. Now, in module number 2, you learned how to establish your company legally and how to protect your brand and how to write your business plan and what financial practices you must have in order to run a successful business. Today, we're going to discuss branding and design, an area of business I personally believe is the most important on your entrepreneurial journey. When people ask me how I've been so successful, my answer is always the same. My attention to detail in my intentionality with branding. Let's take off and our startup hats for a moment and put on our designer hats instead. I've always defined a designer as this: anyone who devises ways to change existing situations into preferred ones. Today, in this coaching video, you are a brand designer. You're designing your business models, your customer experience, your product, your banking process, your culture, and sure, even your business cards. Before we dive too deep into design, I'd like to speak to the more classic definition of branding first. Let's begin with removing a few myths about branding. A brand is not a logo. A brand is not a matching graphic design. A brand is not how a company advertises. A brand is not a product. A brand is the all-encompassing global emotional experience a customer has with your company. At the core, brands are just feelings. When a person has enough emotional experiences with your company, you're said to have a brand, whether you like it or not. If you are open for business and have interactions with customers, you have a brand. Which leads me to one of my favorite quotes. Your brand isn't what you say it is, it's what they say it is. Luckily, you can control the emotional definition of your company. You can manufacture a consistent echo chamber of experiences that help create a steady feeling when people interact with your company. This is the art of branding. Let's start from the beginning. What's the purpose of branding? Why do large companies pay hundreds of thousands of dollars to firms to brand or rebrand their organization? Think about that for a second. The answer is to differentiate, and not just to be a little different, but to be really different.
Biologically, the human mind is hardwired to only notice what's different. In a sea of gray bloggers, t-shirt companies, design firms, coffee shops, and ad companies, how is your brand going to become a bright yellow dot? How are you going to become so vastly different that your organization can't help but become talkable? Remember, we live in a time where consumers are overloaded with information, which leads us to another important lesson. A wealth of information creates a poverty of attention. How do we stand out in a noisy marketplace? How do you fabricate a brand that represents the emotions you desire? In my experience, it's broken down into 4 areas, which we'll discuss today. Number 1, you know your brand vision. Number 2, you know your whyology. Number 3, you know you're good and different. Lastly, you've layered your brand story into your business model. Know your brand vision. As I mentioned earlier, brand is just feelings. Creating the correct emotions can be difficult. There are 2 types of brands. The first is an accidental brand, which is a product, service, or an organization who blends in with the market and has no purposeful emotional consumer strategy. Let's get real here, guys. This is probably most of you at this point. Next is the intentional brand, a product or service or organization which people are connected at such an emotional level, they believe there is no substitute for the company in the market. Now, obviously, we all want an intentional brand, but what does that process look like? Well, let's begin with our first task. I want you to define 5 brands that you love, not 3, I want 5. Not just brands that you love their design or their customer support. I want the whole package. Brands that you wish you had started. Brands that would work for you if you needed the job. Brands that impress you at every corner. This should take a little research. Spend some time here. Maybe 15-20 minutes scouring the internet. Then I want you to list off 5 reasons why you love each of these brands. You should have a total of 25 reasons when you're done. For example, I love Chick-fil-A. Why? I enjoy how their staff responds to pleasure with almost every customer request. Their strategy, I believe their management has taught a philosophy of servant leadership to its employee training systems to enforce the impact that language has on their customers. Lastly, as a bonus, I want you to ask yourself if the employees to the owner of this brand are happy. Not just content and cheerful, but actually love their work. In my experience, a wonderful external brand with merely satisfied employees or burnt-out owner is a serious sign that a brand is a marketing phony and primarily cares about financial results. Their focus is value profit before people. You might want to consider choosing another brand for your list. Next, I find it difficult for an entrepreneur to begin crafting their brand vision without knowing what they do better than another company in the world. I call this a company's onlineness. This is your second task. I want you to fill in the blank. My company is the only blank that blanks. It might look something like this. My company is the only burger shop that owns an organic farm. By defining this statement, you'll help initiate the clarity process for your branding journey. And even better, it'll become a great statement to derive direction for your marketing efforts in your brand in your future. Second, know your whyology. Simon Sinek, he wrote the book Start With Why, touched on the topic for leadership. I'm going to discuss his theory with this in the arena of branding. It's this area of messaging that I believe will complete the foundation required to build a clear, intentional brand. For every entrepreneur in the world who knows what their business does, some entrepreneurs may even know how they do it, different than others. But very few entrepreneurs know why they do what they do. For example, Digital Altitude breaks down like this: education for aspiring entrepreneurs. That's what we do here at the granular level. We have training and coaching courses driven by experimental learning and accountability to a community of fellow starters. That's how we do it differently than most. As for why, we must dig deeper for this. This is your purpose, your calling, and the reason you get out of bed in the morning. But defining your why can be difficult. Let me explain. A person's why is driven from deep inside their limbic brain. It's this portion of the human mind responsible for emotions, trust, loyalty, and gut decisions. Interestingly, this portion of the brain has no capacity for language. For example, if I asked you why you love your spouse, the chances are that you would spew out a list of facts and features, but you would really never get to the core. Again, why do you love your spouse? Almost out of frustration, you would likely yell back, because I just do. Your lack of emotional answer is very common. It's difficult for your limbic brain to put those feelings into words because there is no cognitive ability for a language in this portion of the brain. On the contrary, the what and the how are driven from the neocortex portion of the brain. This is the portion of the human mind responsible for analyzing facts, figures, and data. It's where you house all capacity for language. It's the portion of the mind responsible for asking the limbic brain the very important question, should I care? Shockingly, this is exactly how consumer psychology works out. Most marketers list off what their brand does with a long list of facts, figures, and data. They ask if they want to buy, click, read, more, watch, so on and so forth. It looks something like this. The customer's neocortex receives the message, understands the what and how, and asks the limbic brain, should I care? The common answer is no. For example, let's say I add a pop-up email to capture the DA website that reads, we have over 1,000 members, hundreds of educational articles, learn how to start your own business, subscribe. That's not compelling, is it? To be honest, there are probably over 100 companies that claim to do the same thing, many of which that do it quite well. How does an entrepreneur get around this? How do we get people to catch the feeling of our brand? How do we tap into the emotional side of potential customers and lure them into our brand community? We lead with our why. We activate the emotional side of our brand first. Over the past few years, it's become clear that with consumers inundated with thousands of ads, sales pitches, marketing ploys, and visual simulation, our neocortex has learned to filter out the noise better than ever. The what and how messages are more common in the sea of sound. Over the past few years, it's become clear that with consumers inundated with thousands of ads, sales pitches, marketing ploys, and visual stimulation, our neocortex has learned to filter out the noise really better than it ever has. The what and the how messages are mere common in a sea of sound. Now, more than ever, we are realizing that people don't buy what you do. They buy why you do it. Better email capture might look something like this. We believe dreams are worth chasing. It's our mission to provide dreamers the educational tools to start their own business. Climb for your dream. Much better, right? It opens up with speaking to your limbic brain. It looks something like this. My emotional statement skipped your neocortex, although by starting in your limbic brain. Then I fed your neocortex with the facts and figures of the second. This is how the best entrepreneurs position their brand messages. What is your company's why? Let me give you a few tips and examples on how to develop and present your whyology to the world. Number one, your whyology statement must have the ability to place the words I believe or we believe in the front of it. I'll provide you some examples here in a moment. Number two, in most cases, your whyology should become your tagline and just add a quick learning point. Taglines live with names, while slogans live with campaigns. Your tagline will become a critical representation of your brand, a slogan as a part of advertising. Number three, your whyology statement should be short, no longer than 5 words, 2 or 3 words at best. Number four, once you define why, make sure it's the first thing people do and know they land on your site, meet you in person, or read it in your business card. Here are a few examples of whyology statements. DA, dreams are worth climbing for. Sevenly, people matter. Spokenly, words change the world. Pro merch, sports connect people. Notice that you can add the words we believe in front of each of these statements. Here is your next task. Take a moment to define your what, how, and why into 3 single sentence statements. Note that I've spent 2 or 3 days defining whyology statement. You may want to brainstorm a list and thoughts and even with some friends before attempting to put this together. Section 3. You know you're good and you're different. As I mentioned earlier, branding is about creating a different, memorable, and talkable brand for the market, but finding the balance between good and different can be challenging. Think of it as a chart with an X and a Y axis. one side representing good and the other side representing different. The first box represents good, but not different. This is why 95% of brands find themselves. These brands test very well, they're safe. It's a good brand that just blends in with everyone else. The second box is to be good and not different. Surprisingly, these brands make it to the market, gain mediocre traction, but eventually will fail. We call this area dying on the 20-yard line. The third box is different, but not good. This is probably the most dangerous quadrant. There is no traction here. It fails immediately, and people remember how bad it was. The fourth box, the box that we're all striving for, comes with some magic, good and different. For many entrepreneurs, especially left-brain thinkers, this is a risky space. Different makes them think of a thought like, don't fix it if it's not broken, or it's good enough. Why make it different? Do you guys remember what the first Prius first came out? How weird looking it was. We now understand that in order to achieve its efficient gas mileage, that the body needed to be aerodynamic, which made the car look very different from the rest. Without going into too much detail, let's just say it became the most popular car of all time. What about Tom's shoes? In 2006, when I saw people wearing a pair of Toms, I didn't know if they were wearing slippers or shoes. They were kind of ugly and they fought against the current trends. But when you learn it's based on a successful shoe design in Peru, and every pair you purchase provides a pair to a child without shoes, it changes the entire perspective. It's different, and to the tone of a few $100 million. When we think of creating a good and different brand, words to describe good and easy, but what are words to describe different? They are difficult. I've created a list of both good and different words that will be available for you in this month's study guide. Section 4, layering a brand story into your business model. As many of you know, word of mouth is still the #1 driver for all business growth. Since many companies become lost in a sea of other brands, cut from the same model, it's difficult to notice anyone. They all have a product, they all have a good design, a nice video, good customer support, and maybe even cool packaging. What you've done is create exactly what every other startup has created. In order to stand out, you must create a brand business model that is not like anything you've ever seen. A story that is so incredibly different that people cannot help but tell others about it. To do this, you must break your brand story into 3 layers. I'll walk you through what it looks like using a brand that I conceptualized for a past client. Layer number 1 is the foundation layer and is based on what your company does. The statement should start with, we sell blank. For the company I was working for, we sell coffee. What this layer provides is a starting point on how to position your brand's story. Layer number 2 is called the differentiation layer. It's when you list off who you sell your product or service to, but be specific. Remember, if you're everything to everyone, you're nothing to anyone. For this company, it was the outdoor community. This now gives us something substantial to work with. If we try to differentiate on we sell coffee, we're going to die in the streets. But now we've narrowed our customer focus and we can begin layering into creative elements to emotionally connect with our unique outdoor customer. Here are 4 creative elements we came up with. Number 1, let's create collections of coffee named after the national parks like Yosemite, Joshua Tree, and Yellowstone. Number 2, we thought let's wrap the coffee bags with beautiful photos of the outdoors taken in the parks by influential photographers. Number 3, let's say the history of the founding story or of each national park on the back of each coffee or bag or cup. Number 4, let's design the shop with old maps and photos of the parks that make an experience of being in the outdoors come alive. Effectively, we've just captured a passion community because there's already a group of people who love the outdoors and love places like Yosemite and love outdoor photography and history. We've already ignited an emotional brand layer that connects far deeper with your target customer than coffee alone. Furthermore, you've extended a long runway for brand play and other creative ideas that fit within the national park's outdoor hiking camping community. Layer number 3 is called the independent story amplifier. This is where you must ask the question, what will make it impossible for people to talk about your startup? What can we do that fits with our differentiational message that is so unique that people can't help but be entertained by it? What can we add to the customer experience that just puts the cherry on top of our brand? For this company, was the statement, with every bag of coffee sold comes a bag of matches for your next adventure. Wait, what? A box of matches? Yep, not just any batches. A box of matches either. A unique box, walnut stemmed, paint dipped, color tipped matches held in a beautifully designed recycled 2.5 by 1.5 inch chipboard box. When someone hands them to you for free, you're blown away. They're so lucky. They're so beautiful that you want to take a photo just to post it online. Lucky for the business owner, they've created the incredible wow factor, free word-of-mouth marketing for all in less than a quarter. What makes this story even more interesting is that the outdoor coffee company happens to also make the highest quality matchboxes in the world. Inside their stores, along with the coffee, you can purchase various links of matchboxes, from wood boxes to long stem versions for your fireplace or just a designer box to put on your shelf. We've now completely amplified the brand story. We're a coffee company who sells to people who love the outdoors. With every bag sold, we give a free box of matches for your next adventure. It really sounds like something, right? I want to tell my friends about something that gets them excited. Now guess what we called the company? Matchbox Coffee. Their tagline, adventure awaits. They're not a coffee brand, they're an outdoor brand who happens to sell coffee. Here's another example of a great independent story amplifier. As a child, I would go to the Ace Hardware store with my dad. He would be getting tools to fix up the house, but my favorite thing was to run into the back of the store and grab a bag of popcorn. Yes, a hardware store provided free popcorn, at every location too. A small, inexpensive illicit addiction that went a long way in the differentiation area. As for me, I'm planning to buy some things here in California. And guess what I'm going to call it? Digital Altitude. A place where people can come for free, meet quarterly for workshops, and have some weekends to spend some time and learn about marketing and starting an online business for entrepreneurs. I could only imagine that one of you would tell a friend and actually like this. You have to check out this thing called, Digital Altitude. This guy has started it, and it's actually a real, place where you can go and learn marketing and collaborate with other entrepreneurs and marketers. It's amazing. You should check it out. Here's a few important notes on creating an effective amplifier. Remember, you're creating an echo chamber. Every element needs to be fed into another element. Number one, your amplifier must feel brand cohesive. If we give away screwdrivers instead of matchboxes, it wouldn't make much sense. Number two, make obvious connections, not long extensions. Number three, it must be so interesting that it catches people off guard. Number four, it must be affordable. This brings us to our next task. Layer your brand story into your business model. I've included this exercise in this module study guide. Next, I want you to speak briefly to graphic design. I want you to listen carefully to this statement. If your company doesn't have a great graphic design, you will fail. As you know, graphic design is not your brand. It is just one form of expression of your brand. My main point is this: quality design is no longer optional. In today's market, you're competing with companies who have the best designers in the industry. It can seem overwhelming, but remember, the power of good design is key. Here are a few examples of good design. Good design equals credibility. Good design equals trust. Good design equals referrals. Good design equals quality. Good design equals reliability. Good design equals professionalism. Good design equals conversion. On the flip side, bad design equals unreliable. Bad design equals uncertainty, equals concern, equals inferiority, equals inadequacy, equals amateur, equals stagnant. This doesn't mean that you need to hire a full-time designer, but you do need to recognize the power of quality design as an entrepreneur. Here are a few suggestions. Design is about developing your eye. You need to know how to use tools like Photoshop to be a great designer. Excuse me, you don't need to know how to use tools like Photoshop to be a great designer. Work on expanding your understanding of quality design. Number two, if you're not a photographic designer, don't design your own materials for your startup, period. It reminds me of one of my favorite quotes. Do what you do and do it well. And what you don't do, outsource. With freelance sites like 99 Designs or Fiverr or Odesk or Upwork, you should be able to find a reliable designer at a very good price. There are a few things to remember. Leverage the use of templates in places like the Envato Marketplace. Don't try to reinvent the wheel. They have great branding packages, logo designs, business cards, mock-ups, you name it, all for an affordable price. Secondly, pretty doesn't count. Yes, you want your design to look nice and create a visual impact with customers, but good looks alone don't bring in sales. Great graphic design is blended with strategy, clever copy, writing, and an intended result. The takeaway, bad designly graphics can be very expensive. It can actually keep your entire startup from being successful. If you can't afford to do it right from the startup, wait until you can. Trust me, this area of patience will pay off. Last step is creating a brand guide for your startup. A brand guide is the organization's identity guidelines written in a manual to explain how the brand should be represented internally and externally. Imagine that the Target logo looks completely different everywhere you see it. There will be no way of making the instant connection in consumers' minds between the logo and the brand promise. Brand identity guidelines provide very specific instructions on how tangible elements of the brand should be used in all forms of the company's communications, from business cards to ads to packaging to signage and everything in between. In other words, by following specific brand guidelines, your brand can leave its exact fingerprint across all communication touchpoints. A professional brand guide would include instructions related to the colors, fonts, and layout. They also include sections on logo and tagline, use of signs, photography, signs, brand themes, and more. These guidelines are there for forms of branded marketing and advertising. Even in the internal presentation that uses the brand name and logo, a form of branded communication that should follow the brand identity guidelines. Most importantly, every brand needs their own brand identity guidelines manual. In these guidelines, which will make it possible for the brand to move through these primary steps of branding, builds consistency, persistence, and restraint. If your brand isn't consistently portrayed and communicated persistently within certain restraints, then your entire brand and brand story are compromised. This leads to a brand confusion, which can actually kill a startup. A great brand guide can ensure your company is always portrayed consistently and accurately, so consumers have an opportunity to develop the trust in your startup and its promise. In other words, set expectations for your brand right now with a basic brand guide that enables everyone who creates communications for your startup to accurately portray its story. Here's your final task. Create a 5-page branding guide for your startup. Page 1 should include a cover that represents the brand. Page 2 should include the company's mission, the whyology, the vision, the core values, and your onlineness statement, and even 5 to 10 words explaining how your brand should feel. Page 3 should include the logo, your brand's color palettes and fonts, titles, headlines, and body fonts. Page 4 should include 2 examples of your brand's photography style. Page 5 should include a business card markup and ad mockup to the visual brand executed in the graphic design form. I've included the DA 5-page brand guide as a PDF that you can actually download below. This concludes this lesson. So let's go over what we learned today. Number 1, we took an overview look at branding. Number 2, we learned how to create a brand vision. Number 3, we learned how to create a whyology statement. Number 4, we discussed how to create your good and be different brand. Number 5, we looked at how to layer a brand story. Number 6, we reinforced the importance of good design. Number 7, we learned how to create a brand guide for your startup. You also have 5 important tasks to do here. Number 1, list off 5 brands you love, why, and your assumed strategies behind them. Number 2, create your startup's onlineness statement. Number 3, define your startup's what, how, and whyology statement. Number 4, layer your brand story into your business model. And number 5, create your 5-page brand guide. Next, to finish the module, you want to read the short PDF pack below. Then complete your study guide and checklist. This shouldn't take longer than 90 minutes. And also pick up a copy of the module's recommended reading, audio and or print, before moving on to the next lesson. Lastly, the next lesson is all about architecting a sales-driving brand-building website. It's the final module before we launch you to your world. Here's a sneak peek of what we'll be learning. Number 1, how it meets science in good UI and good UX. Number 2, how to position important web messages first. Number 3, the science behind conversion thinking. Number 4, critical components behind winning websites. Thanks for joining me today here on this lesson. Thanks for being brave enough to change your life and chase your dreams here. I'll leave you with this quote. You are what you do, not what you say you'll do. I'll see you on the next lesson. Take care.